Good afternoon. My name's Alan Young. I'm the Vice President of Product Strategy at Zixi, and I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about total cost of ownership, why it's important, and how Zixi lowers that. So before I start, I'd like to talk a little bit about what Zixi does for those of you who are not familiar. We develop software solutions for the media industry that delivers live broadcast quality video over any IP network, any cloud platform, to practically any device. We work with the world's leading broadcasters, media companies, sports leagues, and practically anyone that needs to move live linear video. When it comes to why Zixi, it really comes down to the functionality and the capabilities that we provide, as well as our focus on the total cost of ownership, and I'll get into exactly what that means during this presentation. So we solved the IP delivery platform with a modular platform that consists of 5 interconnecting components. Start at the bottom left with the Zixi Edge Compute. So we put the Zixi software into all sorts of devices so that they can be ingested into the Zixi broadcaster. And the Zixi broadcaster is really the workhorse of the Zixi software-defined video platform. We ingest a large number of protocols. One thing about Zixi is it's not just a protocol. It's one of the protocols. It happens to be the best, in our opinion. But we ingest pretty much any protocol. We then process using our live transcoding. We do workflow processing. We do connection bonding. We add security. And then we package and configure for delivery to the target. So the linear workflow goes from the ingest devices through the broadcaster, and then it can be delivered to any number of targets, and we process it on the way. On top of the Zixi broadcaster, we have the intelligent data platform, and this is for predictive analytics. So we collect billions of data points along the way, and that allows us to visualize what's going on with the workflow and analyze it. And we've added AI tools that allow us to predict when things are not going to quite go so well, and to allow operators to take action before it impacts the viewer. The whole platform is orchestrated and monitored and managed by ZenMaster. So this is a control plane that allows onboarding, configuration, monitoring. It's a very flexible tool for operations and reporting. So that's the whole platform, and it's all software, and it's integrated into thousands of devices. So we've been around for quite a long while, 15 or so years, and we've always had the philosophy of partnering with third parties, so that we can expand the use and applicability of the network. So we operate globally. We're completely virtual, so that's a lot easier than it would be if we were in a legacy hardware situation. And some of the stats at the bottom there. I mean, hundreds and thousands of live events. So in terms of some of the challenges that are faced by the media industry, profitability in an IP world is a big focus. There's a push to do more with less, so to be more efficient. And that means that there needs to be flexibility both in terms of the deployment of services and capabilities, but also in the teardown of those services when they're not needed. And there's a lot of focus on automation. There are two primary ways that media companies make money. The first is advertising. And so we've put a lot of tools into our platform to assist and help content providers make money with their content through advertising. And then the other way is subscription revenue. And so that means that you need to be able to control who sees what content when. And part of that is conditional access, but also part of it is rights enforcement, and that needs to be policy based, and of course it needs to be auditable. So in terms of the total cost of running this, we look at all of the costs. It's not just the cost of the software, it's the cost of running the software. And there are a lot of hidden costs, especially with free software, right? So open source software, you hear a lot about it. But at the end of the day, and I've got a slide on this later on, you'll see that the cost of egress from the cloud and the cost of the compute to run the software become very, very significant. And if they're not managed and focused on, they can, take control of the project. And there's also a high cost of operation. So adding new features and functions, and the people to commission, monitor and support, create a high cost of operation. And so Zixi is very focused on reducing those costs. And there are some things that we can do that we call hard cost savings. So these are typically on the left-hand side, the hidden costs of egress and compute. We can calculate very accurately what that takes, and we do that. And then there are some more subjective costs, which are people and workflows that they're harder to nail down in terms of real numbers, but they're nonetheless there anyway. So one way of looking at it is the hidden costs for egress and compute. The CFO is interested in those because you can put them on a spreadsheet. The CTO is more interested in the new features and the functionality and how to actually run it. But at the end of the day, I think it's true to say that when transitioning to IP, you can't just be better. It's also got to be less expensive. Otherwise, it will just delay the transition. And so we're, again, very focused on how to make the total cost, that's all of the costs, less than the total cost of running it today in whatever environment. So, as I said, we've been around for quite a long time. And these are average numbers, but you can consider the total cost of pretty much any live broadcast workflow. You can break it down into three very broad chunks. One is the infrastructure. Two is the actual software that provides the functionality, and three is the people. People is always the largest cost. And so over time, these are the averages that we see in terms of the cost. So of course, because people and infrastructure are 80% of the total cost, focusing on reducing those is going to have a bigger impact on the total cost of ownership. And so again, that's the approach we're going to, and again, we have the hard costs, which you could put here into the infrastructure, and you have the more subjective costs, which are more people related. So we have a kind of a mantra now in terms of let's do the math. So we actually prove to customers on a spreadsheet exactly what their cost of operation is. And we have a number of tools that we use to reduce egress and compute in particular. So lossless compression. Our software platform is video aware, so we know how much bandwidth is needed at any particular time, and we will strip out any null packets. Well, actually, we don't strip them out; we compress them because we put them back at the other end. But the impact of doing that is we reduce the egress costs. So these are the costs that AWS and other providers charge. It doesn't change the picture. It doesn't change the quality of the service, and it doesn't change the stream at all as it's handed off to the next stage of the workflow. So on the top right there, a bit difficult to see, but we've got the same video source. It's a 9.1 megabit per second stream. SRT, they add overhead for the error correction, 9.4 megabits per second. Zixi, exactly the same stream at exactly the same time, is 2.2 megabits per second. And that's because the video part only needs 2.2 megabits per second, and the rest of it is just null packets. Other protocols transmit those as well. We don't. We take a little bit back for the error correction, and that's how we're able to do it for actually less than the true bandwidth. The next one, DPDK, that stands for Data Plane Development Kit. This is something that our engineers have been working on for a couple of years now. This is a technology that allows our software on particular processors to bypass the operating system's IP stack. So we go straight from our software to the NIC card, and that produces huge savings in compute. It also has some security benefits as well, which we can talk about in a minute. But we've measured 10x reduction. So for the same throughput in bit rate, we use 10x less compute. And of course, in AWS, that translates to 10x less cost, which is simple as that. We are running on Graviton ARM3 processors, and as AWS keeps improving its performance, its cost performance, we make sure our software operates efficiently on that. You can see it's a bit hard to see on the slide, but you can see 100 gigabits per second flowing through. And by the way, we have a number of customers now that are pushing that sort of bandwidth through our platform. Some of the other things that we do is hot, warm, fast failover. So here, when you have two streams redundantly, we only have one of them active at any one time. We're sending all of the control protocols through, but that doesn't use very much bandwidth. And of course, you're only using 50% of the bandwidth then. So there's yet more savings and efficiency. There's a small time to switch. So if someone doesn't mind that small time when there's a failure, they can save the 50%. If they want complete one-for-one hot redundancy, then no problem at all. They can just do it and not take advantage of that. ESNI is the event schedulation and notification interface. That is a mechanism of enabling only one stream at a time to be sent to a satellite IRD. Today, when broadcasters and sports, like the regional sports networks in particular, when they send over satellite, they send 40 channels over the satellite, but the receiver only needs one of them at any one time. But all 40 are sent, and the switch takes place in the IRD. With Zixi, we do that switch inside the Zixi broadcaster so that only one stream is sent. And that, again, saves a huge amount of bandwidth and compute processing power as well. And for one of our customers, that's a 20 times saving. So we're talking orders of magnitude of cost saving here on the infrastructure. We're operating our transcoding on the NetInt video processing units, and again reducing cost by 50%. So it's important that we do all of these things because these are hard savings. You can literally put them on a spreadsheet and you can show this is what it costs if you don't do all these things, and this is what it costs if you do. And the results are very positive from an ROI perspective. In terms of some of the more subjective savings, we have ZenMaster, which is essentially abstracts all of the complexity and allows users to very simply and straightforwardly construct very complex workflows, which are then managed and monitored. And so that results in a faster implementation, takes less time, therefore it's less cost. Again, it's subjective. It's not something that you can so easily put on to a spreadsheet, but nonetheless, it's still there. We provide very strong visibility into the workflow and what it's costing to run. And this is very important because you can see exactly where the costs are, and that allows you with that data to go and re-engineer the workflow. And one of the great advantages of operating in the cloud is that you get to continuously re-engineer the workflow and make it more and more efficient all of the time. Someone said to me, a while ago that your most expensive day operating in AWS is your first day. From then on, it gets better and better as you re-engineer the workflows. The next one, identifying root cause, is a big one. We use an AI engine to analyze the billions of data points that we collect and predict when there's going to be a failure. So we're tracking CPU usage, RAM usage, we're tracking packet loss on networks and all sorts of other parameters for every workflow that we're running. And this allows us to trend and therefore predict when something's going to happen that will cause an outage. And then we can flag that to an operator, and the operator can go in and take a look and decide whether action is required, whether they need to restart a machine somewhere or switch to a backup path before the failure occurs. From a security standpoint, this is what I was talking about with DPDK. In addition to the SOC 2 controls that we have in place, and the content encryption that's kind of table stakes in today's broadcast environment, because DPDK bypasses the IP stack of the operating system, any vulnerabilities that are in there are gone. And it allows tremendous flexibility and simplification. So for instance, we can put everything on one single port, which makes the firewall rules much simpler to implement. You simply just block every other port. Other protocols don't allow that. And so if you have 100 channels, you're going to be using 100 ports. And then the firewall needs to have a rule associated with each port and each channel. Much more complicated to manage and therefore more expensive, but also less secure. So DPDK helps in that very, very important way. Again, very difficult to quantify. The Zixi-enabled network has 1,400 customers and 400 partners. And because they're all using the same Zixi platform, if they want to exchange content, they can. And they can do it very simply. But the other important part of that is that then each can see visibility of the other. So when you hand content off to the next part of the workflow or to the next partner, you can still have visibility of what's going on with that content. And that's very, very important for content rights owners to be able to see, oh, I've handed it off to this MVPD. I've handed it off to this distribution partner. I can see what's going on inside their network. Again, much more visibility and So as I said, lastly, ZenMaster provides, a deep visibility. That's, kind of a repeat point. So to summarize, the Zixi-enabled network, largest global ecosystem of live video, with, unparalleled access, enabling the ingest and distribution of very high quality content. Orchestration through ZenMaster, the ability to manage these workflows from anywhere. You don't need to be sitting in a physical network operation center. You can literally be anywhere. And that, for some of our customers, is very important, particularly if they don't want to maintain 24/7 in-person support. They want to, they want to be able to, allow people to work from home or wherever they happen to be. Scalability, because of the lower cost of operating, it makes it much more scalable. And because we add more and more functionality, that also reduces the load and the need to integrate third-party systems, because you don't need an encoder because we're encoding. You don't necessarily need to have additional monitoring, because we're providing some of that as well. And the low latency, by the way, one of the things the Zixi protocol does very well is manages the latency on a link by link basis, and it does it dynamically. So as the conditions improve or get worse, we move the latency in and out, so that we optimize the quality of the video for the end user. Cost effective. We think we can prove that the total cost of ownership, and that's the cost of Zixi software, plus the cost of all the infrastructure to run it, plus the cost of the people to operate it, we believe that we can make that lower than anyone else. That's our mantra. That's what we do, and we believe we can prove it, and have done recently with several customers. Of course, it all has to be reliable. So, again, we focus on making sure that it's operating. So we have a patented hitless failover and error correction paired with low latency. And last but not least, sustainability. At the end of the day, we've got to take care of the planet. And so reducing the cost of compute reduces the amount of electricity used, direct one-to-one relationship, and goes without saying what the benefits of that are in terms of net emissions. Okay, thank you very much. I'll allow a few minutes for questions if there are any.
Do you work with multiple ad streaming?
I'm sorry?
Do you work with multiple ad streaming for the ad supported? So how do you support rolling in the ads, and do you work with FreeWill or any other companies?
We do. We have partnerships with companies that do ad insertion. But it's not so that we directly are involved with the ad insertion. We do one thing that's very important, which is we do a lot of processing and monitoring of the SCTI 35 messages that are so critical. And that comes to, not only do we monitor that they're there, we can alert when they go missing, or if they don't occur at the right frequency, because if that stops, then all of the revenue downstream in the digital space stops. But we're going a little further now, because what you find with SCTI 35 is that the different MVPDs, so different distributors and different ad insertion layers, they require slightly different format of messages. And so what we're doing now is building in the capability to customize the Scotty messaging on a target by target basis. So you can have messages coming in, and they might be, be too technical, type 5 and type 6 messages with various different segmentation descriptors. Some ad insertion platforms can't handle 2 different types of message, and some can't handle more than 1 segmentation descriptor. So what we're doing is building in the capability to correct that for that particular vendor. And we're doing that using something called an ESAM interface, which is the Event Scheduling and Management API. It was on an earlier slide. And that can then connect to something called a placement opportunity information service server, which is, it's been around in the industry for many years, in the cable industry. But we're enabling our customers to connect to that, so they can put business rules in to say, hey, if it's going to this target, delete that Scotty message and insert this one, or remove the second segmentation descriptor from this, and our platform will then execute that and do it. So we're trying to build in functionality that helps the customer maximize their revenue in that way. So sorry for the long-winded answer.